Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And we're at episode 104.
One day, I shall come back.
Oh dear, we are in trouble, aren't we?
I've reversed the polarity of the neutron flow, so the TARDIS should be free of the force field now.
I have the advantage of being slightly ahead of you. Sometimes behind you, but normally ahead of you.
The trouble with time travel is one never seems to find the time.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding, etc., etc.
A meteor storm, and the sky above us was dancing with lights. Purple, green, brilliant yellow, yes!
I'm the doctor, by the way. What's your name?
Rose.
Nice to meet you, Rose.
Run for your life.
It's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Just remember who's standing in your way.
Look at the eyebrows. These are attack eyebrows. You can take bottle tops off with these.
Howdy, howdy, howdy do. Hope you guys have had a fantastic week.
Thought you were still in Wurzel mode for a minute. Howdy, howdy.
Yeah. Oh, good news. Wurzel related.
Oh, yeah.
I tracked down a box set on eBay.
Oh, really?
And it arrived yesterday. So, yay.
Oh, Britt, what's that? The complete
stuff, yeah.
Oh, you've got some hours of fun there.
Indeed, I would, yeah.
Has it got the New Zealand stuff on it as well, or is it just the classic? Has it? Because I haven't got them. I've only got the whole UK stuff. I never got the New Zealandy stuff. I might have to get that as well.
Down Under, it's called, isn't it? Even though it's in New Zealand, it's, Anyways, enough about Wurzel. Doctor Who.
This is not a Wurzel Gummidge podcast.
This is not. We said that loads of times. This is not a Star Wars podcast. This is not Ghostbusters. Right, so... Howdy do, Who fans. We hope you guys have had a fantastic week and that you've managed to do something Doctor Who related at some point. How have you been, buddy?
I've been really good, thanks. Yeah, not too bad at all.
I've seen some pictures online of certain Mr. Foster.
Yes,
signing...
your old mate, Ben Foster. Yeah, so I've currently, I've got a piano, an electric piano, very close to me now as we record, actually. In my house, which was bought from his brother, Nick Foster.
Ah, yes.
We went and collected it on Sunday, and because I do tinkle the old ivories, for anyone that doesn't know. Weird thing was, we didn't know it was them when we sort of arranged buying it. It all sort of came about as we were setting up the sale. But anyway, yeah, long story short, went and picked up the keyboard/piano. Nick was there. He's a BAFTA-nominated musician himself, and he signed it, and his brother Ben, who obviously conducted all the Doctor Who proms and that. We've mentioned him a few times, haven't we? Mm-hmm. He was there as well, so we dragged him out of the kitchen to sign it, and I got a quick picture with him. So that was really nice. So yeah, I've got it here. I've been playing it quite a bit. I'm sure the neighbours are loving it.
That's awesome.
And, no, it's really good actually, because I used to play a lot, and I'm a bit rusty, but it is surprising how sort of things stick with you, like. Some of the tunes, I just literally sat down and played it like I don't know how it's still in my memory. It just played away. So yeah, it's really nice to have that.
Yeah, I can only play a few tunes on the old ivories. There's two songs that just in my muscle. No, there's just two songs in my muscle memory that I can just always play whenever I sit at a piano, and that's Richard Marx, Right Here Waiting.
Oh, that's one of the ones I played.
Yeah. And what's the one from Les Miserables? I think it's called. I Dreamed a Dream.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I don't know why, just those two from my high school music GCSE days, I've been able to play those over and over. I can't play anything else. It's just those two. When I sit down, it's just, It's so funny that you can play that Richard Marx song as well, because that's exactly when I was sort of tinkering away and, trying to think of things to play. And, just without thinking, I went into that. It's like so cheesy. Yeah. I went from that to Axel F, I think. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you need the synth sound
mixing
for
it
that,
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a few little sounds on it.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've been mixing it up a bit. So yeah, so that's been good. So apart from that, not much, except I had a really good day out yesterday. At a Doctor Who location. We both like the story of Black Orchid, don't we?
We do.
You like that one? Yeah. I went to the, like the train platform where the TARDIS lands.
Oh, at the beginning, yeah.
At the beginning, yeah. It's actually a museum. It's not a platform that's in use. Mm-hmm. So it's the Buckinghamshire Railway Centre Museum or whatever it's called. So I went there yesterday. Bit of an impromptu visit. It's a little bit of a drive out, but it was a scorching hot sunny day. And I went with my dad and my sister. And while they were entertaining my sister's little boy, I went off and did a bit of filming. So I've sort of partly filmed a location video. But I need to visit some of the other locations from the story because I was thinking I can't just have the train station in it. But it was a great day, and I just love being on that platform. I think because I like that story.
Yeah.
And I went on one of, they've got like, you can go on a normal train, but you can also go on one of those miniature little trains.
Oh, right, yeah.
Now, bearing in mind that I'm quite a big guy, I was like, can I actually get on this? Because it was so small. It's like a little miniature train that you will go on. But that was really cool. So I've done a bit of video on that, and no idea when it'll be out, but I think it'll be quite a fun one when I finally do get it finished. That's a really nice looking platform as well, isn't it? It is.
And it's a great little scene as well when the TARDIS materialises on there at the beginning of Black Orchid.
That's right, yeah.
Good.
And obviously they come out of the other side of the platform, and I filmed a bit there. There's a house up the road. If you remember in that story, the police take the police box away, don't they?
That's right.
And the Doctor has to go to an old police station to find it. Well, that's obviously a house now. It's not whatever it was back then. And that's just up the road. I didn't get to film there. I've got to go back at some point. I don't know when. This is why I don't know when the video will be out. Because I've got to go back and do a bit of filming up there as well. So, but yeah, it's a cracking day out. There's something about trains, isn't there? I just love like going on a train.
Is there, Sheldon?
Train. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yes, I guess there is something about trains. They move you along.
Yeah, I don't know. I just liked being around all the old-fashioned steam trains. It was good. It was quite cool. Yeah. So apart from that, not much. I listened to the other story in the old Crumbling Doctors classic New Monsters, whatever it's called, the Jadoon one with Colin. I have to say, I reckon I wasn't in the mood because I was bored. It didn't grab me. In fact, if you asked me what it was about, I have absolutely no idea.
The Jadoon story.
Yeah, yep. I think I need to listen to it again. I just clearly wasn't in the mood for it because I totally zoned out and I didn't have a clue what was going on. And it finished, and I was kind of like, so yeah, I need to go back and listen to that because I know a lot of people like that one. You liked it, didn't you?
I very much liked it. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. Perhaps I was just in the wrong mood.
You're in one of your moods.
I was in one of my moods, yeah. Just couldn't get into it for some reason. And I normally love Colin on audio as well. Yeah.
I still need to listen to the last two. I still haven't got round to. Been busy watching it, not listening.
Yeah, same here. I've only listened to the first two, so still got two to go. So I'm the same as you, yeah. So that's me, mate.
Talking of locations, did you see, I think it's been out for a couple of weeks or even 3 weeks now, the special edition Doctor Who mag about all the locations?
Yeah, I did.
Did you pick that up?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, it is good. Yeah. I must admit, it's a really strange thing to be annoyed about, but obviously being a big fan of all the locations and loving anything to do with Doctor Who locations, when I saw that was coming out, it was like, tailor-made for me. I was like, wow, brilliant. What a great special. Can't wait to get that. And then I opened it up and the first picture is of David Tennant and what's that girl's name? From the bus story in the desert that I hate.
Oh, Lady...
I can't think of her name.
What's her face? Yes, Michelle Ryan.
Michelle Ryan, yeah. What's the story called? Dead Planet or something?
Planet of the Dead.
So I opened it up, anyway. And that's the first picture in there, and I was like, oh, God, no. So I quickly flicked past that, and there's loads of good stuff in there, actually, and a lot of locations I still need to visit. Yeah.
Lady Christina de Souza.
That's the one.
Or just Lady Christina, that was the one, isn't it? Didn't they go out to, is it Dubai or Abu Dhabi or something to do that?
Somewhere like that. Yeah. Can't remember. Yeah, Lanzarote's one I'd like to go to. That cafe on the side of the cliff, the Planet of Fire. That'd be quite a good location. Is there any location you want to go to? Is there anywhere you've ever, when you've been watching a story, you thought, I know we've talked about going to Remembrance of the Daleks, that location, but anywhere else when you've been watching it, thought, yeah, I'd like to, wouldn't mind going there?
Yes, one that you've already famously done in one of your Geeks Handbag videos. I'd love to go where they filmed The Demons.
Oh yes, Oldbourne. Yeah, great place. Yeah,
that looks really good. We still need to go. I've been there. I've walked through there. This was quite strange. The Remembrance of the Daleks story. I actually have been through that area a couple of times in London. This was before I even started the podcast, and I didn't even obviously clock that was the, because they've still got that thing, haven't they, with like the iron bridges going across, and all that stuff around. Yeah, so I'd like to go back there, take some pics there.
Yeah, amazingly, that hasn't changed much because a lot of London just changes all the time. Funny enough, I was watching a location video of this review app that we're doing today, Talons, and they've got a Now and Then feature out on there. And yeah, a lot of them, they were saying, no, this no longer exists and this is totally changed. And you wouldn't recognise half the locations from Talons, but thankfully, Remembrance, it's pretty much as it was.
Yeah, so I'd like to go back there. We'll do that. That's quite an easy one to do, just hop an easy one into London, yeah. Other than that, I can't really think of anything else top of my head. I really like to go into Caerphilly Castle.
Yes,
when they were filming like the back end of series 9, when they did Hellbent and that stuff. So I really liked that. That was really cool. Yeah, so I'm glad I got to do that. Other than that, I don't really know. I assume that it's like anything, when you watch certain things, certain episodes, you're like, oh yeah, I'd love to go there. There's quite a few, but is there any that's on your bucket list that you haven't done yet that you'd really like to do?
I'd quite like to go to the Stones of Blood location, which is sort of out near Oxfordshire, so it's not a million miles from here. Weirdly enough, this is a strange one, but because I love City of Death, and I have been to Paris quite a few times. I love France, but I'd like to go. There's those famous doors that Tom Baker stood out in front of in all the publicity shots, and that I've always wanted to find those doors. So I just don't know. So at some point when I next go to France, I want to try and find those. It's like the entrance to Scaroff's mansion, isn't it? It's like those two wooden brown doors. Yep. So it's a strange one, but I'd quite like to just get a photo outside the front of those doors. So that's kind of on my bucket list. Yeah, cool. But yeah, no, pretty much. I think the Android Invasion location is one of my favourites. The little tiny village with the Fleur de Lis pub and all that. That's one I've been to a few times, and I never get bored of that because you've got the monument where Tom gets tied up on it, and it's a great place. And there's a pub, and it's always good to have a location with a pub in it, isn't it? So
good times.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, we'll have to do a few more locations. Get some in next year, I think.
Yes, we need to fill up the YouTube channel.
Yes, we do. We were talking about this because the Big Blue Box podcast has a YouTube channel.
It does.
With no videos on it, and we need to do something about that.
It's blank, yes. We have it all set up.
And we've already got 1,000 subscribers.
Big Blue Box TV,
yeah,
as it's known as on YouTube. But it's just, it's sitting there like a naughty child in the corner at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's been banished into the corner. It's not, nothing's going on.
But it'll come alive one day.
It will come alive, yes.
Yeah,
like the phoenix from the ashes. Yes. So other than you brushing shoulders with celebs from the Doctor Who world and stuff, not much else for you.
Oh, no, that's it.
The only other things that I've done, I've watched quite a bit of Doctor Who over the past week and a bit.
Right.
But I'm quite annoyed at myself that I didn't listen to the rest of the... I think what is it you called it? Old Doctors, New Monsters. Yeah,
yeah, Ancient Doctors and slightly new monsters.
Slightly new, yeah. So I've watched. Yeah, so there was this thing on a channel that used to be called Watch, which is now just called W.
Oh yeah, I remember Watch. Yeah.
They always show loads of Doctor Who all the time, and they had these like specials that were on a year or so ago. I think they were just called The Doctors Revisited or something, where they just basically, they just throw in a bunch of people who worked on the show and interview them for like 20 seconds. And it was the David Tennant one.
Oh, and right.
While they were doing that, they were showing like various clips and stuff from all of his episodes. And that really sort of got me into that Tennant mood. So started watching from series 2 onwards. So I think I got up to Girl in a Fireplace.
Oh, yeah.
I think, which is really good. But School Reunion, I love that story. That's a really good story. So I'm really glad that I got through that. And I think the one after is not great, is it? I think it's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I think it's Age of Steel.
That's it.
Something like that. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to stop at Girl in a Fireplace while it's running well. So I might come back and stick those on. I'm not sure. I watched the TV movie, Mr. McGann, get myself psyched up for the Blu-ray release.
Mm-hmm.
And after I watched Talons, I was in like fourth Doctor mode as well. So I was like, right, let's keep this train going. So on went the horror of Fang Rock.
Oh, brilliant. That's the next story, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So it's been a bit of a Doctor Who fest, like TV-wise. But yes, I do really need to finish the Big Finish. It's like, the OCD's just sitting there pulsing away.
Yeah.
Listen to me. You're halfway through. You're only halfway. How can you sleep? So, yes, we'll do that. Other than that, we're all good, aren't we?
Yeah, I was going to say, Series 2 is a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? There's quite a few stories from that I absolutely love, and quite a few that I've not watched in ages. And Age of Steel is one of those I have not watched in a long, long time, that Cyberman two-parter. We haven't reviewed it either, have we?
Not yet. Nope.
No, maybe, we'll have to do that at some point.
It's definitely it's definitely a rewatch situation. Well, I'm sure we'll discuss lots about that when we
come around to it.
But interesting one.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So I reckon we should land it and do the news.
Okay, let's get into the news.
Now, I'm either going to sound incredibly stupid here, or I'm going to pull this off. Because you know what we're like with names.
Yes.
Pronouncing names. So, the only bit of news we have this week is a certain French detective is going to be joining Series 10.
Are you building up to pronouncing his surname?
Yes. Now, I'm either going to sound incredibly like British and common.
Don't say Satchet.
So I'm going to take a stab at this one. David Suchet.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. David Suchet is going to appear as a character called the Landlord in Series 10, which is currently being filmed over in Cardiff.
Yes.
Now, I, for one, am really happy about this. Because I remember back in the day sitting down in my front room cross-legged with a comic book or something with my mum watching Pyro quite a lot. And I remember thinking, this guy was really good. He does look he has aged a lot because he wasn't like really old in Pyro, was he? But, he was knocking on a bit. He must have been in his 40s back then.
Yes,
or something.
Well, it's been going for years. Yeah.
So he has aged a lot. He does look very, very old,
and he's lost his little moustache. It always reminds me of one of those ones you get in a Christmas cracker that you have to pin. To he's lost that, obviously.
Yeah. So Mr. Poirot will be with us in Series 10. So this is good. I'm really intrigued by the character as well, the landlord. It reminds me of that Matt Smith episode with. Was it called The Caretaker? No.
No, you're on about the one with...
what's his name? James Corden.
Yeah.
So,
The Lodger.
The Lodger, sorry. That's right, yeah. The Caretaker. The Lodger, yes. It's got that vibe to it. I don't know why, but yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's always good. It's always good in Who to have, like, a very established actor. Someone who's, earned their wings, if you like, in TV, so they know the drill. There's none of this messing around. Down to business.
I have to say I'm very pleased with this bit of news because I do think David Suchet is a great actor actually, and so finally a bit of Series 10 news that sort of made me prick my ears up a little bit. I was like, oh, David Suchet, he's quite a quality actor to get, so let's hope he gets a decent role because he's one of those people that can be absolutely fantastic given the right script.
Yes.
So I'm very excited about this. I love the look. I love this publicity still that they've given us of him outside this weathered sort of door. Looks like an entrance to sort of an old mansion or something.
Yep.
So I am intrigued by him. I know the Radio Times did a breakdown of everything in the picture, and I love how they read into all this stuff. They were like, the door knocker's on a slight angle. What does that mean? And his shoes are weathered, so he's obviously been walking far and all that. I was like, is this for real? But I do like the publicity still. So let's hope he gets a good part, because I think he could be really good in it.
Indeed. Yeah. Obviously very famous for playing Poirot. An Agatha Christie story.
Yes. Yep.
And the Doctor knows all about Agatha Christie.
He does, yeah. He's no stranger to that. What's that episode called? Unicorn and the Wasp.
That's the one.
That's one I love that one now. Didn't like it when it went out.
Yeah,
absolutely love it now.
Yeah, a lot of people like that. They can't stand it, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, no, I like it.
That's news. There's not much else going on, is there? I think the only other thing is a couple of little tweets going on. No,
there's not much going on. There's been a few location pics. I'm sure you've seen these of Peter and Pearl outside a house that they've used before. Somebody said they've been filming at the Blink house.
That's correct.
But I don't know if that means it's just a reuse of the location or whether there's any further connection. But yeah, there's been a few film pics. The reason I mention this is because the best thing about these tweets has been the Doctor, Peter Capaldi, meeting fans and getting inside. These kids had sort of brought their own homemade TARDIS. And they got Peter and Pearl to sign it. And Peter, being the brilliant ambassador for the show that he is, got inside the TARDIS and was having pics. And yeah, I just thought that was fantastic. So
that's cool. Yeah,
that was a nice little moment. Yeah,
yeah. There was a guy as well who tweeted out. Somebody else retweeted it. We don't follow him, but he was saying that they were filming at a location on his street, and it was literally just a few minutes down the road from where he lived. So he's, as a bit of an opportunist, he sort of an armful of stuff and sort of legged it down the road. And when they finished filming, he basically just dropped, everything that he could pick up. So it had some DVDs and some stuff. And Capaldi was there, he just signed a lot.
Yeah.
Took a few selfies with him and had a chat. So that's really nice. He's a cool guy, Peter, isn't he? So he looks like the guy that would just make time for fans,
Oh, definitely.
Schedule permitting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's really good. I just thought that was so great. I mean, imagine owning that TARDIS when those kids grow up and they'll be like, they got to keep that in a safe place, haven't they?
Yeah.
Really nice. Yeah, good stuff.
Indeed. We've got some merch to talk there.
Yeah, let those Daleks in, those pesky old Daleks.
Merch corner. Merch corner. Merch corner.
I don't know whether to be impressed or disgusted.
It's a bit rubbish, but it's pretty. It's very pretty.
Got some news on the TV movie Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we spoke about this, didn't we? Last episode, one before, where it had been announced that the movie is indeed coming to high definition, a.k.a. Blu-ray, a.k.a. whatever you want. Yeah?
Your fears have been confirmed, haven't they?
They have indeed, and I'm my worst. Not my worst.
Pre-order has been cancelled from the Aylott household.
No, it hasn't. No, it's still on. But,
okay.
The reason why it's still on is thus: although the movie is not going to have a restoration or a clean-up or anything like that, it's just an upscale. I'm not thrilled about that. I'll be honest with you.
No.
Because I honestly feel that it deserves that. Because if you look at stuff that was filmed around the time. Now you're a Trekkie, so you should hopefully confirm this for me. But Star Trek: The Next Generation, that had a wonderful cleanup and restoration, and when they released like the full Blu-ray box set,
I was gonna say, see, I only like I am a Trekkie, but I only like the original series.
Oh, okay,
so,
right.
But I think you're absolutely right, and I have to say they did an absolutely amazing job restoring the original series, and I believe they did do a proper HD restoration on, and it probably was The Next Generation or one of them. Yeah,
I'm sure it was. Yeah, and that was filmed around a similar time. So maybe we don't know the ins and outs of these things, but it's possibly a budget thing. There's not enough money to do it, but it would have so benefited from having a proper a rescan, so that they've still got all the original film that this was done on, so it would have been entirely possible to do a new scan, a cleanup. It would have looked fantastic on Blu-ray. However, it's an upscale, so it will look better than the DVD. It will, because it's got slightly higher bit rate and the bumped up resolution and stuff. So it will look better. And the sound, it will probably sound a bit better as well.
Yeah, true.
Which is good. However, I've kept the pre-order in because it sounds like, well, it doesn't sound like, there is some really good extra features with this one that we haven't seen on the original DVD release.
Oh, right.
Because there's two discs, that we know. Disc 1 has obviously got the movie, but then it's also got commentary from the director, Jeffrey Sachs. It's got another commentary with Paul McGann and Sylvester McCoy.
Yeah.
Which is overseen by Nick Briggs, which I think is on the DVD, isn't it?
It's on the DVD, yeah. It's good, though, that one, yeah.
There's a documentary on there, The 7-Year Hitch. There's another documentary called The Doctor's Strange Love. We also get The Night of the Doctor.
Oh, that's a great little mini-sode, yeah.
Which wasn't on the original DVD, obviously.
No.
Because that came after. Then there's photo galleries. We've got... you can listen to the soundtrack on its own.
Which is, as we both said...
Big thumbs
fantastic.
up.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And it's got some other production stuff. Then they've thrown in an extra disc of extras as well. So this has got the early audition tape that Paul McGann did.
Well, that'd be good.
Should be good. It's got press kits. It's got a load of behind-the-scenes additional footage around Vancouver in Canada. There's got the producer and writer Philip Seagull. He gives us a tour of the Paul McGann TARDIS and the console. It's got like a deleted scenes sort of section, alternate takes they call it. So stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor. And then it's got some extra stuff on here. So it's got Who Peter. So this is the second part of the documentary exploring the relationship between the world of Doctor Who and Blue Peter. The Wilderness Years. It's got a rundown of all of the 8th Doctor comic strips that we've seen over the years. It's got something called Tomorrow's Times, which is a look back at the all the coverage of the TV movie through all of the publications. And that's presented by Nick Courtney.
Yeah.
Which is good. I think that was on the original DVD.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And then we've got a load of visual effects testing and all that stuff on there as well. So for me, the pre-order, the Blu-ray version of this is worth it for the extras alone.
To be fair, they've pretty much tried to put on... I mean, that is quite a good chunk of extras, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, yes... as Doctor Who fans are going to snap this up, but if you look at it in terms of sales, it's not going to be a massive seller in the larger scheme of things. So they can't spend too much money on it. But it is a shame. I mean, I would have loved to have seen it get, like you said, the proper HD treatment. Because I think with upscale, you'll know more about this than me, you do get like a bit of jarring, don't you, between scenes or something. It's not always... It improves the picture quality, but it can also...
yeah,
it's not perfect, is it?
Yeah, well, I think the two main things that go into it is, and I've just realised one of them actually, which is probably why they didn't do it. But the first one is because you up the resolution, that can highlight any sort of niggles in the picture that were there in standard
the gradiness and stuff like that.
So it can enhance any sort of deformities in the picture. But the second thing, which I didn't realise first of all, is that because this was filmed in standard definition, all of the special effects would be in SD.
Right.
So what they would have to do, I don't know if anyone, listeners, or if you, mate, I don't watch it, but when I picked up the X-Files Blu-ray box set, what they did with that is they went back and redid all of the special effects in HD.
Oh, wow.
So along with cleaning up the film, they actually went back afterwards, deleted the special effects and put new ones in HD. Which is time consuming and expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, like you're absolutely right, mate. They can't afford to throw loads of money at it because it's not going to set the world on fire in terms of disc sales. But yes, I'm still just longing for that glorious proper HD picture of the movie because it would look so good.
I know, but I think they've done a good job with what they've got, and the good thing is the retail price at the minute. I think it was $19.99 as is expected. It has dropped, so I think the pre-order price is about $13.99 at the minute or somewhere around there. It's dropped quite a lot since they first put it up. So, and if you shop around,
isn't it?
Yeah, I think it was $13.50 the last time I looked on Amazon. and Zavvi were like $14.99 or whatever. So you shop around, I think you'll actually get it. You can't go wrong for that price. I don't think so. I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest with you. I just love sitting down and watching the TV movie. I'll be honest with you. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
There is a danger with this. An additional danger.
What's that?
That is, are we going to have to double dip on this one? Because I've got a slight I've just got a feeling, I don't know why, but I've got a feeling that at some point there's going to be a steelbook version out as well.
Yeah, see, I've got that feeling, but I don't mind because I'm quite happily, as I said, for like sake of £13, I'll quite happily buy the steelbook as well. Yep. I would love to see a steelbook of this. The artwork's quite nice, actually. The new artwork, it's
really nice. Yeah.
I guess it's not quite up there with the Spearhead. I mean, that is beautiful. The artwork on Spearhead Blu-ray. But yeah, it's nice enough. It would certainly, if they brought out a steelbook of this, I'd snap it up.
It reminds me of a Big Finish cover.
Yes, it does me as well a little bit. Yeah.
Anyways, the TV movie out on Blu-ray hasn't slipped yet. It's still on the 19th of September.
Excellent.
For £13.50.
$13.50 in a minute. Any advances on $13.50?
From Amazon, that is. I don't know about anywhere else, but yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, for those of you who like your Doctor Who books, there's a new one coming out from our friends at Candy Jar. It's called Connecting Who, Artificial Beings. Love that, Artificial Beings. And this is a bit different because there's loads of Doctor Who books out there, so it's sometimes hard to come up with an original concept, I think. But this one, I'll give you the little blurb. It says, the Cybermen, the Weeping Angels, the Daleks, the artificial beings of Doctor Who are some of the most iconic in science fiction, but what inspired them? Connecting Who traces their origins back to the myths, folk tales, and real events of history. And it says, not to mention the wealth of other sci-fi writing from which Doctor Who has drawn. So this is by a chap called, now we know all about pronunciation earlier, Peter Graham?
Peter Graham.
Peter Graham.
Yeah.
And he's been an avid fan of Doctor Who since it was very first broadcast, so he knows his stuff. And basically he's given you a guide that explores what lies behind, the creatures in the longest running science fiction series of all time. So it's a bit different, this one. I think it'll be one for those that sort of want to know, a bit more about what inspired the creatures that ended up on screen, I guess.
Yes, it looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah. What's the cover? I'm just zooming in. It looks like buttons or something.
It's that game, Connect 4.
Oh, yeah, right.
With the red and yellow discs that you have to make 4 in a row.
Yeah, I get you.
You read me? So this is out in...
Well, it's up for pre-order. I had a look earlier. There's no official date.
There's
but
no
it's up
date
for
yet.
Pre-order. Good thing is, if you do pre-order it from Candy Jar Books Direct, you get a free copy of the Lethbridge Stewart book, Beast of Fan Rock, with it. So that's a good deal, and that's a great book as well. So,
indeed,
yeah, that's worth doing. Yeah,
it's $8.99 plus postage, so probably around a tenner.
Yeah,
but it looks pretty good if you're interested in that stuff, like you say. Might be worth a read.
Just something a bit different, yeah.
Indeedy. Let's stick with Candy Jar. Those guys that bring us the Lethbridge Stewart books. There's you guys might remember, but a few months back, they released a short story called The Havoc Files.
Yeah, it's like a collection of all the little short stories brought together, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. So they've been, I'll tell you what, they're busy guys over at there. Candy Jar.
Yeah, they are whacking them out now, yeah.
Really busy. So not only do they, we got, how many books in the Lethbridge Stewart range? Is it 5 or 6?
No, it's more than that. 4, 5, 6. There's 7 currently, I believe, yeah.
So they've also brought out, they did a free short story, which was before the Havoc Files. Then they brought out the Havoc Files, and now this is the second one, the Havoc Files 2. Like you say, a collection of the short stories that sort of intertwine with the books themselves.
Yeah.
And this is
very limited.
It's really limited, yeah. They only do a short run of these, don't they? Because I think you missed out on one, didn't you? You're the first one.
Well, I missed out, yeah, because I've got all the Lethbridge Stewart novels so far, but I missed out on the Havoc Files, the first volume, because it was so limited, and somehow it just passed me by, so I was a bit gutted because I would love to have got it, but it was very limited. This one is also very, very limited, so yeah, if you want it, snap it up now.
Yeah, so if you just head over to Candy Jar Book, so it's candy-jar.co.uk, and just do a search for it, you'll see it on there. But if you're a completist, or you just want to read a bit more into the Lethbridge Stewart stuff, then they're well worth checking out, because they're nice short little reads as well. You can get through it relatively quickly.
Yeah. That's right.
So yes, Candy Jar, killing it as usual.
And did you say to me something about a code? Do we have a code?
Yes. I thought I was going to come on to that one. So we've got a discount code given to us by our good friend Mr. Andy. Mr. Andy Frankham Allen has said that our listeners can get 30% off until the end of September for any of the Lethbridge Stewart books. So all you need to do is jump over to the Candy Jar website. So the address once more is www.candy-jar.co.uk. Just there's plenty of little pics of the books splattered all over the homepage, or if you just do a search for Lethbridge Stewart, they'll come up. All you need to do when you get to the basket screen, the checkout screen, is just enter the code EPICLS30, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. So EPICLS30 will get you 30% off, and that runs until the end of September.
Good times.
And if you haven't got any of these books yet, now would be a good time to jump in.
Yeah.
So use that code, get the first couple if you've not started yet, and you'll be on your way.
Definitely. Good stuff.
Good stuff indeed. I think that's going to do for news and merch, buddy.
Okay.
So, Mr. Adam.
Oh, no, don't.
Mr. Adam, what are we going to review this week?
I'm not going down that road. We are reviewing the Talons of Weng-Chiang.
Doctor, I offer you a proposition.
Not now, Greel. We're busy.
I will spare your lives, you and your friends, if you leave now.
Well, that's very magnanimous of you, Magnus.
Then get up and leave.
What? With your trigger-happy little friend out there, no thanks.
I am offering you your lives, you fools!
We'd be cut down before we reach the door.
I think so too. He has no truth in him.
Let's see. We're staying put, Magnus.
And you'll die here, all of you?
Well, you might die first, Magnus. You don't sound too well. And your food supply's halfway to Blackheath by now.
Sin! Cut that bench away!
If I only had a gun, Doctor! Or a catapult. I was a dab man with a catapult when I was a nipper. What is that weapon?
It's a laser beam.
It's a death ray.
Doctor, they're diminishing our cover.
Hurry, Sin! Hurry! There is little time left to me!
He's a cheeky chappy, that Mr. Sin, isn't he?
He's a little bugger, isn't he?
I love that laser sound effect. That's classic.
The Talons of Weng-Chiang. This was back in February to April in 1977.
Oh, good Lord.
Written by Robert Holmes, directed by David Maloney, and overseen by Mr. Hinchcliffe.
Yes. Was it his last one, did I read? Before he handed over to Graham Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yep.
He was succeeded by Graham Williams.
He was, yes. So it all started to go wrong. Anyway, yes, I know, I'm joking. Yeah.
Incidentally, John Nathan Turner actually worked on this.
He did. It was his first one, wasn't it? Of doing, don't know what he was doing. He's in the background somewhere.
Yeah, he was doing some production thing.
Wheedling his way in, yeah.
Indeed. So, Mr. Baker, Mr. Tom Baker, and Louise Jameson.
Yes, lovely Louise.
Yep. 6-part of this one. All just over 20 minutes long, 24 minutes, whatever.
And like you, I thought it was a 4-parter.
Yeah,
I always in my head, I always think it's a 4-parter. This one, so I was quite surprised to put it on. And I mean, I have watched it quite a few times as well. You'd think I'd know by now, but we both said, didn't we, last week? Is it a 4 or 6? And we were like, it's a 4.
Yeah, we always So, story is thus: the Doctor and Leela arrive in Victorian times. Is it Victorian London?
London, isn't it?
London. It is Victorian times, isn't it?
I would have said so, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. With the Doctor dressed in his Deerstalker hat, looking very Sherlock Holmesy.
Very much, yeah.
And I believe this is the only story he's ever worn this outfit.
Yes, and he hasn't got his trademark scarf on, has he? And I think it's the only story he doesn't wear that.
Yeah. He's just got a sort of cape, throw coat thing to match his hat.
He's got a lot going on, actually. He must have been boiling, baked
hot. Yeah. Right, so the two of them land in Victorian London and immediately make a trip to the theatre where there's a sort of magic illusionist sort of show going on. The Lee Sen Chang. That's right. Yeah, it's a silent H, isn't it? Lee Sen Chang is putting on a magician show and wowing the audiences of Victorian London. However, gentleman comes barging in, says that I think his wife or his sister has gone missing, which sparks the Doctor's sort of detective mind immediately, and wants to know what's going on. Ultimately, it's down to a guy called Magnus Greel.
Great name.
He's like this Phantom of the Opera sort of character that lives beneath the theatre.
Yeah.
And his loyal servant, Chang, is bringing him these young people who he's sort of sucking the life force out of them so he can maintain himself while he's trying to hunt down this wardrobe, essentially. A Chinese-looking wardrobe, which is actually some kind of sort of experimental sort of teleportation device, I believe, that's going to sort of, restore him and, take him away from, this very boring, grey-looking London that he hates.
Yeah. It's like a time capsule, isn't it?
Yeah, is that right? Is it a time thing? Yeah.
Time cabinets, yeah. He wants to get out.
Yeah. And yes, so while this is going on, sort of the police are investigating these disappearances and murders which comes across to me, it looks like a bit of a triad sort of gang. And we also get introduced to two fabulous characters, Jago and Lightfoot.
Yeah, great.
Yes. So, so one of them, Jago, he runs the theatre, doesn't he? He's the general manager of the theatre. His character's very much a real. Actually, the pair of them, they're real sort of solid British old timers.
Yeah.
And Professor Lightfoot, he's a professor, isn't he? He works in the morgue, didn't he? He's like a investigator for the police, does like postmortems and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they sort of pair up at the end, which we'll come on to later, aren't we? Because that leads very nicely into some Big Finish stuff.
Yeah.
But they sort of pair up, they team up towards the end to help the Doctor and Leela. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's basically about Magnus Greel, which will come on to his connection, why they call him Wang Chiang a bit later, ordering around Lee Sen Chang and his thugs. And we also get some giant rats as well.
Oh, yeah, don't forget the giant rat.
The giant rats, yes.
Yeah.
So story-wise, it's pretty good, actually. It's a pretty good story. It's got some social shortcomings, I would say. Some social
looking
or
at it now,
shortcomings, which I'm sure we'll mention in a little while. But off the bat, Talons. What do you reckon?
Talons, I love it. I think
you love it?
Great. Yeah, I do. There's no being on the fence with this one.
You got no splinters in your bum this week?
No, I do. I think it's a really cracking story, really cracking production, actually. There's very little I can find to fault with it, apart from, like you said, a few things that perhaps now are not seen as particularly PC. But yeah, I think it's a really good story, this one. I do enjoy it. I do wonder, because it's often ranked as a classic, and I think sometimes people will say, oh, very overrated.
Right.
I don't think so. I just think it's just a really good story. I really enjoy it. What about you?
Yes, I love this one.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I thought you might have been in that overrated camp for some reason.
No, I love it. This was one of the first... There's about 4 or 5 Tom Baker stories that I watched when I first started getting into Classic Who.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, out of those 4... Yeah, this is one of the first ones that I watched. I think the very first one I watched of his was Genesis of the Daleks.
Oh, right, yeah.
Then Pyramids of Mars, and then this one, I believe. And I must have seen this one about 5 or 6. I think when I watched it this week, this is like the 6th time I've watched this one. And I never get bored of this one. I just find little bits in there. Every time I watch it, I find little bits that I didn't realise before. And there's like little things that it's almost like you're watching it fresh for the first time every time you watch it. I know some people are like, nah, it's a bit overrated and stuff like you said. But no, I really like it. I think it's written really well. It's not crammed, too much dialogue. It's not overly complicated, I would say. But it's not a simple story either. You can't really, switch off and, have Twitter out while you're watching. You do have to watch it, but it's not overly sort of mind-bending. It has got a couple of little sort of not downfalls. It's got some shortcomings, like, the PC side of things. The guy who plays Greel, Michael Spice, he can be a little bit like, when they said that his sort of layer, his underground layer would be based in a theatre, I think he took that a bit too strongly, because he's very, very theatrical at some...
Yeah, it's Phantom of the Opera.
Very OTT, yeah. And some of the... again, I think it's just that early Doctor Who, that 70s period, where any sort of fight scene just looks very laboured.
A bit staged.
Yeah. So other than that, it really is a cracking story. And it's got a really good pace to it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because considering it's 6 episodes... and the fact that we both thought it was 4, it doesn't. There's no episode where I sit there like you said and sort of think, just check the old Twitter. Not much going on. It's pretty well paced. I think it does keep me entertained really well across those 6 episodes. Probably because of the cast are so good in it. I mean, there's such a great cast in this series, in this story. Yeah.
So I thought, because sort of, especially when you get into episode 3 and 4. It does start to move along a lot quicker at that point.
Which is normally when it starts to sort of lag in some 6-parters. You get to sort of episode 3 or 4, and that's where it normally starts to get a bit laboured. But yeah, this one, it tends to pick up, actually.
Exactly, yeah, that's what's good about this one. When we spoke about Classic Who before, especially the 6-parters, probably 9 times out of 10, we will say that when you get to episode 3 and 4, potentially 5 before you get the big build up at the end, some Classic Who does drag.
Oh yeah,
you do get that period where you're like, come on, and they do a lot of A to B and stuff like that. This one's the opposite. I find that it builds quite nicely. Episode 1 is sort of the quietest, I would say, out of all of them.
Probably is actually, yeah.
And then it sort of ramps up, and then it just keeps going.
Yeah,
which is good. So pacing wise, really, really, for Classic Who, I mean, pacing wise is really good. And direction, did you say you like this one, sort of how it looks?
I think, David Maloney was the director. I think he does a very good job on this, actually, because watching it again yesterday and the day before, he's done some good, obviously he's got some great locations going on there. It feels like a very gritty Victorian London for a start. It's very dark, it's very dark and foggy, and we're on real locations as well, which always helps. But yeah, just shots of like when they're having the fight sequence in the alleyway there, and you get some shots of the sort of ninja guys jumping across.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just from a really strange angle. It's almost like, I don't know. I think he sort of tried to make it as interesting as he can in terms of the way it's shot. I think he does a really good job. Yeah, I like the direction.
Yes, David Maloney.
Yeah.
That's a great job. Yeah, and it's also got like a kind of a Jack the Ripper vibe to like the outside shots at night, because it's if I remember correctly, pretty much all of this is shot at night.
A lot of it is. Yeah, a lot.
There's only a few scenes like where the Doctor and Lightfoot are in the little boat.
That's it.
You know, it's during the daytime, and yeah, I think there's a couple of other scenes, but the majority of it at night. And when you're out in the London streets and so on, it's got that real sort of almost creepy vibe to London, because you have like these big spotlights over in the distance, and there's like fog. They're using like a smoke machine, you know, to emulate fog, and it's misty and stuff. And it's got that coldness as well, so you can tell it was filmed like autumn, winter time, because when they're outside, you can see their breath and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just what, you know, it just sets the tone of the story just really nicely. Because although, you know, in terms of, you know, these little sort of methods that go into, you know, how a certain piece of television looks and how it feels, you know, you might be forgiven sometimes for thinking that they're just sort of cheap tricks, you know, having a smoke machine to make fog. But it actually, you know, it just looks really good.
It does. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm thinking of scenes like when Leela's jumping through the window and stuff like that. It's very good for the time it was filmed. Yeah. For Doctor Who, in terms of the production. The locations look amazing, like the whopping stairs. I love that bit with the old crone when they're digging the body out of the river and they're on the whopping steps. And Yeah, I ain't never seen nothing like it. Yeah. Apparently, she just before that take, the old crone. I don't know what her name was. Who was the actress? I don't know. But apparently, she said to Dave Malone, the director, just before they did that take, she said, "Oh, just hold these for a minute, would you?" And handed him this bag, and he was like, "What is it?" She's like, "It's my teeth."
Oh, really?
He's like, "Oh, lovely."
Nice.
So like good to see her getting fully into the role there. But production wise it's brilliant. Locations look absolutely spot on for the time they're meant to be, and it's quite unusual to have Doctor Who so dark and mysterious like that. I think a lot of the time it's very bright and quite often gets criticised for being overlit, so it's great to see so much effort being put into the actual production of it.
Yes, good stuff. Right, Story-wise, we've obviously got for me anyway, there are two elements that run through the story. You have, and even though the baddies are connected, there seems to be two separate, not stories, but separate elements running through. You have Chang, who's like the magician guy, and he's able to hypnotize people. You know, the scene where like the lights are flashing in his eyes.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got him and his sort of gang of ninjas, if you like. They sort of, you know, they're using this magic show as like a cover, you know, for what's really going on in the theatre, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you've got that whole thing, because he's like the face of the organisation, if you like, isn't he? So although he reports into Magnus Greel, although he reports into him, he sees him as his master. Chang is very much like the face of, you know, the baddies.
Yeah.
To everyone in the episode. And then you've got that whole thing going on. But then you've also got Wang Chiang himself, or as Magnus Greel.
Yeah.
So he's got this other thing going on where he's got this real selfish streak, hasn't he? He's had enough. You know, he's very short-tempered with Chang. He's just, you know, he wants stuff done, keeps getting let down, you know, so he's frustrated. He wants out, you know, he wants this time cabinet rocking and rolling. But they very much played on that Phantom of the Opera kind of story, didn't they? Because he's very much hidden in the shadows. He wears the mask.
Yeah, it's kind of a sort of Sherlock Holmes meets Phantom of the Opera, isn't it? There's a lot of influence from both, yeah.
Yeah, and especially the scenes where there's that chase between the Doctor and Greel, where they're sort of up in the rafters and they're swinging on ropes. And especially the bit at the beginning when we very first see Greel as well. He's got that sort of Phantom of the Opera hat on, and he's got the black...
Oh, I forgot about that.
You know, and he's got the black cape that's sort of bellowing behind him.
Yeah.
It's real sort of visual cues there to Phantom of the Opera. So you got these two storylines really, and the Doctor and Leela are sort of flitting between the two. So the Doctor's very much aware. He really knows the history of Weng Chiang, and what he's done over the years. Because I think he's sort of, he's sort of a genocidal, sort of crazy god type character, isn't he, Weng Chiang?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So the Doctor's fully aware of what he's done and what he's capable of, and he's aware of the Time Cabinet and what he needs to do and stuff like that. But then you've also got sort of Lee Sin Chang and his guys who are causing trouble as well. So they kind of flip between the two. They stop him for a bit, but then Chang turns up, so they deal with him, and then he's off doing something, but then Greel turns back up and they have to deal with him. So there's sort of two elements really. And I think for me, that's what keeps the story alive. That's what keeps the pace nice, because if it was just one of them, if it was just Magnus Greel doing his thing and nothing else, it would have been a potentially boring story.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I think certainly it helps, because being a 6-part, having those two quite sort of strong characters going on. I mean, Magnus Greel's quite shouty, isn't he? He's been to that David Collins school of acting, I think.
They graduated together, obviously.
Yeah, because he does shout a lot. But it is it's quite interesting, I think, having the Lee Sin Chang character as the sort of the smoke screen, if you like.
That's it. Yeah. So that's good. And then we also have like a very subtle sort of setup story for Jago and Lightfoot.
Yeah.
Which is really nice, because we see Jago very early on. And then we get to see Professor Lightfoot when the Doctor sort of demands a post-mortem on the Chinese guy that committed suicide. And then those two kind of... It's not until the end, though, that they pair up, is it? It's not until, I think it's episode 5, where Jago turns up at his house, mistakes him for the butler.
That's hilarious, yeah.
And then from that point on, they're like... they sort of take matters into their own hands almost. They don't wait around for the Doctor to come back. They don't do any of that. They just, hat and coat on, out they go to sort it out.
I always think they're in it together much more, don't you? I always forget that it's not till quite late in the story that they actually do sort of pair up. Yeah.
And they work so well together as well.
They're brilliant. Yeah.
They're just these two old, English gentlemen who are very...
No nonsense.
Yeah, very proper. There's no... I'm not saying they're sort of airs and graces, but they are sort of, they're sort of middle class, in society at that point. So they're very, they're not like sort of underdogs. They're not like street rats that are, trying to do the greater good. They're all the established gentlemen within society. But they sort of get their hands dirty, which I like. They sort of roll their sleeves up, ready for a scrap.
Especially Professor Lightfoot, because he's perhaps the slightly more tailored of the two gentlemen, isn't he? He's quite a sort of professional guy.
Yes.
And so he's very well mannered and a very intelligent person. Whereas I suppose Jago's the same, but he's a little bit more streetwise, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Lightfoot, he's come from a military background, hasn't he? Because he said his dad was a general in the army, whatever, because he grew up in China, in Peking, I think it was. So he's had like a very proper upbringing, very to-do military background, whereas Jago, you can tell that he's sort of...
A bit of a lad
when he was younger, but it's sort of built up to that status himself. He's had to work hard to get to where he is, to where, he's earned his money himself. He's not sort of been born into money or anything like that. So he's sort of living the dream, really, isn't he? He's got money coming in through the theatre. He's got plenty of booze, massive cigars. He's loving life. But they seem to work really well together. They just seem to click.
That's why they're such a good pairing. Yeah. They are such a good pairing.
So you got that stuff going on as well. Rightio. So before we get on to like the main sort of part of the story, which is the Weng Chiang and desperate to jump in the fancy wardrobe
with his bar of soap key.
Yeah, we have got this. This is the elephant in the room, isn't it? This cultural thing that they had going on back in. It's kind of indicative of what it was like back then in the sort of mid to late 70s, where unfortunately, it's just, how like TV production and stuff saw, other races, because the guy that plays Lee Sin Chang wasn't Oriental, was he?
No,
not at all.
He's got prosthetics,
so
on his face to make him look more Oriental.
Yeah. So in order of him, to make him look Chinese, like you say, they've got these prosthetics over his eyes and stuff. But it's not only that; it's the way he's been directed to play the character as well. It seems like it's sort of done a disservice, really, to Chinese people at the time, because the way that they sort of got him to play that character, especially the way he talks and his dialogue. Chinese people didn't talk like that. It's like, thank you for quiet. Thank you very much for quiet.
Yeah.
They just didn't, come on, they just didn't talk like that.
No, I suppose not. No. I mean, my partner's Chinese and, we've watched this together and, it's not been remarked on, but you're right. I mean, my partner doesn't talk like that, and probably not a lot of Chinese people do. But it is very much of that sort of what's the word? The stereotype.
Yes.
Of the time that people did. The funny thing is, I don't sort of particularly have a problem with somebody who's not Chinese playing a Chinese part, because I kind of feel that's what television and film is all about. It's about becoming another character. But I can see why it would be seen as not right. Because it would have, But I have to say, I think John Bennett, despite, what we've just said, I do think he's very good in the part. Despite the way he talks and stuff. I actually find him quite menacing. He's a bit sort of Ming the Merciless, actually. Especially with the hypnotizing eyes. So I don't really, although I can see why people would see it's a bit wrong, I don't really have a problem with his portrayal in it. I think he's quite menacing, quite good.
And I think what it is, because probably the people who were making this at the time, making this program, I think that was just the norm as they were, from years before. So if anybody's ever seen the Audrey Hepburn movie, Breakfast at Tiffany's, there's a very famous Chinese or Oriental character played by a Western person in that. And I think that's what kicked off like the whole, I forget the guy's name now. I think it's Yonoshi, Mr. Uniyoshi or something like that. And he, in that movie, like the way that they sort of portray Chinese people, he's like really over the top. They've got the same sort of thing going on with the makeup, and he wears these big round, old school Chinese glasses and stuff. And I think that's just something they hadn't grown out of at the time. So instead of hiring a Chinese actor to play it, a bit more authentically, they just thought, we'll get an established actor, bung some makeup on him, we'll get him to talk like a bit of an idiot.
But I think there's a difference though, isn't there? Because there's no, sometimes when you get a sort of a sketch from a comedy back then, you could say that was quite offensive if they were doing it in that way. Yeah. But there is no malice intended.
Absolutely not.
This. That's the thing, and that's the difference between. That's why I say I don't think it is racist, because there is no. We're not trying to offend anybody in this performance. You know what I mean? It's an actor dressing up, playing a part. It's not somebody trying to make somebody feel bad or so I just don't really have a problem with it in that sense. I think it's of the time. If they did it now, it'd be totally different. A lot of the language that's used in this would be totally different as well. There are certain things that sort of I didn't write them down, but there are bits of the script where they use what I would consider racist language, very mild racist language, which would not be used now. So it is quite shocking when you hear it, I think. But yeah, I don't think they do anything particularly wrong in this story as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think that all the times that I've watched it, I've never once thought to myself, "Wow, this is really quite bad, quite racist and quite bad." The
only bit that sticks to my head is something where he says something about being yellow, which I thought, that that was the only bit that sort of really made me cringe. But then again, I suppose they might have used that sort of term back in 20s Victorian London. So,
yeah.
But that there were one or two bits like that sort of slightly made me cringe. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you say, there was no malice intended. It's not like they're trying to play a spoof of Oriental people or anything like that. It was a genuine, Michael Spice, John Bennett, who played Lee Sin Chang. They didn't hire him so he could be like a comedy version of Oriental people. He's actually, 100% trying to play a Chinese character.
Yeah.
Authentically and, originally. So I did want to pick up on it though, because it is one of the things that a lot of people talk about when they talk about this story. Inevitably, the conversation always comes round to, what do you think to the racism in this story and, all that stuff. So I think if you're that bothered by it, then, there's a lot worse things that you could be watching around this time.
Yeah.
So I think, I agree with you. There's no sort of bad intent. There's no malice there. It's just for its time, back in the 70s, that's just the way the world was. So yeah, elephant in the room is now the kitten in the room. if you want to put it that way, it was sort of downgraded. But yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've certainly read and overheard conversations about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said, it's not excusing it by saying, oh well, it's of the time. It's just, it very much is, and it's not something they would probably do now. But I don't really have a problem. As I said, I think when you are making a production, I mean, that it is all about becoming a different character. So I never quite understand this thing of getting, het up about somebody playing a character that is not of their origin. I mean, for example, the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, he's Scottish, but he didn't use his Scottish accent, so he's playing a part. And I think it's the same thing with this. Yes, it would have been better if they'd have got an Oriental person to play that part, but I think John Bennett does a decent job, doing it. So yeah. I don't have a problem with it.
I remember when the whole David Tennant thing kicked off about his accent, which I thought was just ridiculous, because he was asked about it in so many interviews. So many people asked him, why didn't you use your native Scottish accent? And his answer was always exactly the same. And he was like, because that's not how it was written. That character was written specifically to look like, to have this certain look and to, be that character. It wasn't just a bit of a fluke or anything where they're just going through, day one of filming. It's like, oh, David, can you just try something here? Ditch the Scottish accent, try this one. Mm-hmm. It was written very specifically for him to have that accent, So, yeah, you're right. It's the same with this. This character was written in this way. So, regardless of who played that character, it's just like any other form of acting.
I think that's it's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? When you go to the theatre, you are seeing people become another character. So I don't see why you need to sort of bring too much of racial into it, because you whatever the part, you are trying to be someone else, and that's what being an actor is, isn't it? Is to see how well you can perform a character. So that's how I look at it.
Absolutely, Bob.
Yeah.
Right, before we tumble any further down that rabbit hole, let's talk about some other story stuff. So, yes, let's talk. Well, we've spoken a little bit about Jago and Lightfoot. Let's talk about Magnus Greel himself then.
Yeah,
because he's like the top guy, isn't he? On the side of the baddies.
Yeah,
he's like the top guy. And I actually one of the things that I really liked in this story was his mask was on all the time except for one scene. And what they typically do in TV programs and stuff is that they leave the reveal until a little while into the story. Then you see the gruesome face, and then the mask stays off because you've already seen it. Yeah.
And you literally see it for seconds, don't you? It's on screen for probably 2 seconds. It's a great mask as well. It's really horrific, isn't it? It's like a face that's melted on one side.
Yeah.
It looks really good. I mean, I actually freeze framed it because I wanted to get a good look at it. And it's a brilliant mask. I am surprised we don't see it more, actually, because it probably cost a lot to make back then.
And we're talking about the makeup, the prosthetics and stuff. Like one side of his face looks like it's been made of wax and has been, he stood too close to the fire.
Yeah.
So it's all sort of melted away in his eye, mangled and stuff. It looks really good. But the thing that's great, though, is after that scene, it's quite creepy, actually, isn't it? Because he's hiding behind the curtains.
Yes.
And, he's about to sort of knock out, Leela with whatever chemicals on his hanky at the time. So as she turns around, we see his face, and that's the cliffhanger, isn't it? It's the end of episode 4.
It's a great cliffhanger, 4, I think, yeah.
And then that's it. Every other time we see that character for the rest of the story, he's got that black mask back on.
Which is bizarrely just as creepy, actually.
It is.
I think, because I suppose, like you just said, because you know what's supposed to be under there, it makes it even more, because you keep thinking, we're going to see that face again, which we don't, but yeah. And his whole look is quite creepy, I think.
Yeah, most of the time he's just knocking about in a dressing gown, isn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
But when he does get sort of suited and booted...
I'm looking at a picture of him now thinking, actually, it's a lovely dressing gown.
Yeah. When he does get suited and booted, when he's got that hat on and the cloak and... he's ready to dish out.
Can't stop thinking of that now. Yeah.
He does look good, but the rest of the time he's in like I don't know if they went with the Oriental style with this as well. It looks kind of like what do they call them? They sort of silk Chinese dressing gowns. What are they called?
I don't know.
Commode? No. Anyway, he's got that Oriental sort of patterning over it and stuff like that. It looks quite nice.
Who's the? What's the actor's name? Oh, Michael Spice.
Michael Spice, yeah. So, I'm just going to ask you something because I need to confirm this. Like the many times I've watched this, I always struggle to get my head around it. So, Magnus Greel is the character, like the physical character in the story, but he's like the embodiment of Weng Chiang, right?
I think he's sort of masquerading, isn't he? He's sort of masquerading under that name. So he's pretending he's like this ancient god.
It's a god character, isn't it? Weng Chiang.
Called Weng Chiang, but he's actually not. He's just Magnus Greel. So I think that's the way I understand it. He's sort of trying to hide behind, this pseudonym, really. Which I don't think he actually is. I don't think he actually is Weng Chiang. I think he's just using that to try and big himself up, if you like. When actually he's Magnus Greel, which is still quite a well-known name because the Doctor knows him, doesn't he? He sort of like knows all about him, or recognises that he's not who he says he is.
Yeah, because he kind of leads on to that, doesn't he? Because first of all, he finds out about this sort of Chinese gang because he recognises the tattoo, like the scorpion tattoo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So he sort of figures that bit out first, what they call the tongue of the black scorpion.
That's it.
Which I'm sure they sort of base that on like a triad thing.
I would, I think so.
And then later on, because he sort of clicks, doesn't he? I think it's when he goes into Lightfoot's house and sees the wardrobe or the cabinet, whichever, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And then he also, what's the little sort of cream looking...
Looks like a bar of soap.
It does, yes, thank you. It does look like a bar of soap. Yeah, it's a key, isn't it, that opens up this cabinet.
But you always imagine it smells of lavender.
A nice lavender bar of soap that opens up the magic wardrobe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when he sort of clicks about those two things, then he sort of realizes, yes, I recognize the technology. It's it's all going to go wrong because you've tried to do it once already. You've maxed out the power. If you try, so he sort of, and that's when he sort of clicks and sort of goes back and has a little sort of mini history lesson in his head. And that's when he sort of tells Leela and others about this Weng Chiang character and all that stuff.
How did the time cabinet become to be in Lightfoot's possession? That's because I've watched this a few times as well. I've never quite got my head around that. So how did Magnus Greel and the Time Cabinet get separated? Like, I've never quite understood how it ended up in Lightfoot's house.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how they got separated, but Lightfoot does say to the Doctor that it was his dad's.
Yeah, that's right, handed down or something.
Yeah, because he said that his dad was based in Peking. And, you know, as he grew up and his father passed away, he inherited that, brought it back. There you go.
Very lucky to have not lost the key in all that time.
Yes, yeah. The bar of soap, yeah. Yeah, and then I think Greel has got the other one. Is that right?
He's got a few bits. It's funny when he opens it up and he's got a few little electronic bits and bobs that he's shoved in there, and it's all, he's quite pleased with himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
What do you actually think of his performance, though? Because I like the sort of look of Greel, but he's a bit, watching it again yesterday, he is a bit shouty. I sometimes wanted him to just tone his performance down a little bit. It's almost as if he thinks, I'm the baddie, I've got to shout every single line, you know, and it's like, well, yeah, some of that rage is good, but let's see a bit more. Yeah, I think he could have been a bit sort of more tempered in his performance, if you like, at times. I mean, there's a time for shouting and going mad, like the like the climax of the episode. Sin, you know, that's all great. But I think sometimes, like when he's going mad at poor old Chang, he's really shouting and throwing his stuff all over the floor and stuff. And I don't know. I think he perhaps needed to be a little bit calmer in certain scenes. Would have been more menacing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he shouts an awful lot.
Yeah,
which is unnecessary. It's like, whoa. I'm like 2 feet away, man.
Yeah, just bring it down
Bring it down a click, yeah. So I think that's the one that, like I said at the very beginning, that's the one thing that I wish they would have, you know, the director should have said, you know, you don't need to yell. You know, I know that you're a highly strung character and you're desperate to, you know, get this stuff sorted out. But, you know, because I think there's a time where being sort of quieter can be equally as creepy.
That's what I mean, yeah, because he's got the right look for it. He could have been menacing without the shouting. I just imagine him, John Bennett, taking the director aside. Sorry, what's the director? Dave Maloney. David, I hear what you're saying, but have you ever met the actor David Collins?
Yeah, because we had a situation with him, you know, and we don't want to go down that road again. So just, you know, wind it in a bit, you know. So that's the one thing for me that does, it almost makes me laugh in a way, because it's like, you know, you buffoon, you know, he's yelling at him like full pelt, pretty much everything. I mean, to be fair, you know, Chang, he does, you know, let him down a lot.
Oh, he tries hard though, but
he sends him off to get stuff done, and inevitably he comes back. He's like, "So where is it?" I ain't got it.
What?
You know, and then he erupts and stuff.
Test tube smashed on the floor. It's all kicking off. Yeah, poor old Chang.
Oh, Chang. Yeah. So, I mean, the thing that I do like about him is he's very he's a real physical actor in this story. You know, he's not just one of these Bond villains that sits in a chair the whole time. You know, or anything like that. He's all over the place. You know, he's got quite an active role, so that was good.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack a bit though to some other cast members before we move up the tree. What did we think to? So some of the supporting, like, little tiny parts.
I've just got to say, I'm looking at Wiki. I can't believe that the ghoul was actually played by a person.
Oh.
Am I thinking of the right thing? Am I thinking of that electronic?
Yep.
Ghost that they see on screen for about 3 seconds. They needed a person for that.
Yeah, they just person in a
Patsy
white mask.
Smart. Wow, she was tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dudley Simpson as the conductor, making a little cameo. That's quite nice, isn't it? Seeing Dudley
Smith.
Dudley Simpson.
Oh, sorry, Dudley Simpson. Who's that?
Because Dudley Simpson does all the instrumental music for a lot of Tom Baker's era.
Oh, of course, he did loads.
Yeah, he's actually the conductor. He does a little cameo. He's the actual conductor in that scene.
Regia.
It's the real Dudley Simpson, and I love Dougie's music. I have to say, I really, really really like his stuff throughout the Tom Baker era. It's got a real style of its own.
Yeah, it's great. And he did loads. Yeah. He did like 30-odd episodes.
Yeah, he did loads.
Yeah. What about the young chap that bursts in at the beginning, demanding where, I think, what was it, his sister or his wife?
Oh, yeah, well, the one who ends up in the river.
Yeah.
Dead. I ain't never seen nothing like it.
He was proper old, like Cockney, old school London, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's proper London, isn't he? I know what's going on. I know your kind.
That's it. I know your kind. I bet there's a lot of strange going on in their Arby band. He's got that real old school. Well, it's Victorian times, isn't it? Victorian sort of Cockney.
Yeah.
London talk, which is really good. Then we had the like the girls that were playing like the cleaners and stuff like that around the theatre.
Yeah.
Not much in the way of speaking parts, but they look thoroughly scared the whole time that they were playing those parts.
They look properly terrified. All that shouting. Who's the guy? Who's like the other guy that gets knocked off? Because he's really good, actually. He's part of the theatre lot.
He's the caretaker.
He's like
isn't
the back.
he?
Oh, he's the caretaker. I was going to say like the stagehand. Yeah, caretaker. Who's that guy? Because he's quite good. And I sort of recognise him from other things as well. But
yeah, I think,
what's his name?
I think his name was Casey.
Not sure.
Chris
I like
Gannon,
him.
I think it was Casey. Yeah.
Yeah, because he meets a gruesome end as well, doesn't he? Or does he die of shock or something? I can't remember now. God, I only watched this yesterday and I've already forgotten. But he's good. I like that guy. Gives a nice little performance as well.
He is good. Yeah, he. I think he dies of fright, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's fright, isn't it? He gets scared to death after seeing.
Well, no, he ends up in the stage show. After he puts all the swords into the thing.
That's it. And they open the cabinet and it falls out.
Yeah, because the Doctor was in it originally and just walks out the back, doesn't he?
That's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he ends up in there somehow.
Yeah, that's it. I do like that scene actually with when the Doctor's really goading Chang. Chang's performing his act, and the Doctor's just in the stool box at the side of the theatre, isn't he? He's like, I'm going to shoot. I'm not going to do the accent because I'll be accused of things, but he's like, I'm going to shoot that bullet through the card. And the Doctor holds it really close to his face. He's really sort of goading him on.
Yeah.
And then he obviously gets invited to go on stage and he just tries to wreck every trick he does. Typical Doctor. But it's a good scene. I like that.
Yeah. Let's move on, actually. Let's talk about Lee Sen Chang, John Bennett.
John Bennett, yeah. Well, I already said I think he gives a good performance. Actually,
I actually think he played that part pretty well
because he doesn't go shouty. He actually does tone it down. I think, which makes him more menacing.
He does, yeah. And there's a couple of really good scenes with him that I liked. Where the first one was where he's not reacting to the Doctor's sort of accusations at the very beginning, where he turns up at the police station because one of the Chinese sort of gang members is there being questioned or trying to be questioned by some remarkable Chinese from the Doctor.
Well, it's only the first word because I asked my partner. I said, "What's he saying?" It's only he says hello, I think in Chinese, and the rest of it is just nonsense,
gobbledygook. Yeah,
gobbledygook.
Some remarkable, yeah. So that bit where the Doctor, he gives him the little pill, doesn't he, from his ring? He opens his ring
venom.
Up and he's got the scorpion venom. Yeah. And he's just so cool and collective. The Doctor's sort of asking him these questions, and he's just like, nah, see you later. He's just really cool and collective. And then there's the other scene where, or a couple of scenes where he's talking to Jago in a theatre. And you can tell that, some other people are like accusing him of stuff and he's just so calm, and collective. Even when Jago's trying to find out if the little doll's actually real and, that stuff, he just doesn't break character at all. The only time you see him sort of break that sort of calm and collected thing is where he's being yelled at by Greel.
Oh, yeah.
Then he goes into sort of, servant mode and he's like, I'm really sorry. All that stuff. So I think he played that pretty well, actually.
Yeah, no, I think he's fine. Yeah, he's quite good.
So we've spoken about Jago and Lightfoot. What about Sin, Mr. Sin?
Mr. Sin, what a brilliant creation.
Yeah.
And what is great about it is that the doll looks just like the person. So it's really good how they switch from a live person in a suit to to a doll. The only bit that slightly lets it down is when the Doctor's fighting with him at the end. And it clearly switches from a... Do you know what's strange about that, though? Is that they switch from to the doll when he's swinging around his head, which I totally understand why they do that. But then when the Doctor smashes the bar of soap key, clearly it's the real person in the suit, because he really... I mean, why he had to smash it so close to his head, I don't know. But he really flinches when the Doctor smashes it with his foot.
Oh, yeah,
and I was thinking, why didn't they just put the doll down there? They didn't need to have him in the suit at the end. That's really strange decision, because he's clearly getting bits of what would it have been? Sugar glass, I suppose.
Sugar glass in his face.
Whatever it's made of, smashed all over him. But they didn't need to have him in the suit at that point. So I find that really odd. But it is good. I think he's I think he's really creepy. And it's bizarre when he starts snorting like a pig in episode 5 or whatever. I was like, what the hell?
Well, he's formed from his brain energy, or his mind is a pig, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why he's like,
but I just love Mr. Sin. I think he's really scary. The fact you've got this strange little Oriental doll walking around the streets of foggy London with a knife. It's brilliant. I think it's a great creation. Yeah,
it's a creepy little thing. Yeah. What was he? Peking homunculus. Peking homunculus is what he's known as, other than Mr. Sin.
Right. Yeah, Deep Roy is the actor. Yeah,
Deep Roy. I'll tell you what, that guy's been in so many films.
Pretty sure he pops up in Blake 7 as well. My favourite. I'm assuming it's this actor. Oh, is it him?
I tell you what,
the picture I'm looking at is quite old.
But he's been in loads. He has been in Blake 7. He's been in 4 episodes of Blake 7.
4? Oh, right. I had one specific one in mind that I was almost certain he was in. God, what's the other ones then? Don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Right. So he's mainly known as the Oompa Loompa from the Johnny Depp remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, John.
But just to throw a few films that he's been in, it's just unbelievable. So Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, The Dark Crystal, Return of the Jedi, Neverending Story, Return to Oz, Hook, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, The Jungle Book, Matilda, Mafia, Planet of the Apes, The Haunted Mansion, Big Fish, Van Helsing, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Star Trek, The Unborn, the latest Star Trek movies he's been in. He's been in a couple of Doctor Who, The X-Files, Desperate. He's been in so many films. It's unbelievable.
The Never-Ending Story. Oh, that's a classic. Yeah.
I've only picked out a few there. I think he's been in over 60 films or something.
And it sounds awful, but I thought he was dead because he's not in any of the extras. So I kept waiting for him to pop up, and I thought, he's probably, passed away. But yeah, no, he's still alive. So I want to meet him now. Now I know he's out there, and he's been in Doctor Who and Blake 7. So he's now gone on to my list of must meet people because he will forever.
Apparently. Yeah.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, he will forever be known to me as well as Mr. Sin. He will be known as the Clute from the episode Gambit, Blake 7. I love that episode. You've got to watch that. He's like this evil little guy who evaporates people when they don't win a game of electronic chess. It's hilarious. Yeah. So, yeah, Deep Roy. Very good as Mr. Good. Sin.
Right. So we've touched on Chang, Jago, Lightfoot. Right. So, Leela.
The more I watch Leela, the more I like her. I think she's a really, really good companion. And I wish Tom had got a bit more on board with her at the time, because he really didn't want her there and he didn't like the character. So yeah. I love Leela, and I think they're a great pairing. But you do feel sometimes that the Doctor's a bit frosty towards her. I think he can be a bit demeaning to her. But yeah, for me, great character, really well played by Louise Jameson. I think she plays the naiveness along with being, like this savage action character. I think she just is great. Actually, can't fault her at all.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think she's not one of the strongest companions in Classic Who.
See, to me, she is. The more I watch it, the more I really, really like her. No, I think she gets a bit overlooked, actually.
Yeah, she's okay. She's okay. I just find her to be a bit... her lines to be quite one-dimensional.
Yeah.
When she's delivering lines, she's always talking in the same way. She's always throwing lines out in the same way, and the only time that she looks like she's having any fun is when she's in a sort of fight scene or action scene or something.
But then I think that's because Tom, there was especially this story was a really strained relationship between her and Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't barely look at her in this story. Like when he's delivering lines, to her, he stares straight ahead. And I mean, they talk about it on the making of. Tom just didn't want a companion at this point. And when he did have to have a companion, he really didn't like the character of Leela. He thought she was just the character was too violent. He didn't want her there. So it was a very strange time when they were making this. And I think you can tell a little bit. There is a bit of frostiness between them on screen, I find. Although I think Louise tries really, really hard to not show that. I think she's very warm towards the Doctor, and I find the Doctor's quite cold towards her. So, but I think she gives a great performance. I like Leela. Yeah,
she's okay in this. She's all right. And Tom Baker himself, then.
I think Tom is superb as always, but I find him really quite restrained at times in this story. But I mean that in a good way. He's very, very... He's almost like bubbling under the surface. Like sometimes the Fourth Doctor can be really mouthy, really out there, bounding from wall to wall, crazy. And I find the Fourth Doctor in this story quite reserved. He's very, very calm. He's very, very angry a lot of the time. But it's all kind of compressed. And I think it's really good, actually, to see Tom giving that performance. He's just holding back slightly more than he does in some stories in this. And I think it's really good. I think Tom's superb in it.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you know what I mean by that? He's not quite the mad, crazy Doctor that we sometimes see from Tom. He's quite sort of calm but angry, if that makes sense. He's quieter in this, if you know what I mean.
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's we do get a little inkling of that when he's being questioned by Greel at Lightfoot's house. And he's emptying his pockets. He's got the yo-yo and stuff, and then he's eating a Jello baby. You can kind of see that he's going that way in a couple of scenes like that. But overall, absolutely, he's a bit more restrained than what we've seen of him at this point as the Doctor.
Yeah, I just wish he was nicer to Leela. There are scenes when he's just, I just sort of think, come on, Tom, just warm to her a bit, because he is so cold towards her. But I think they sort of mellow out a bit as time goes on. But yeah, in this story in particular, I think, although I think they're brilliant together in it, I think they work really, really well in it. I just sometimes wish the Doctor was a bit nicer to her in this story, Yeah, like when she comes out all dressed up nice and old Lightfoot. 'Cause I think Lightfoot kind of fancies Leela myself. He's got a bit of a twinkle in his eye when she's around, and there's a great scene, isn't there, where she's eating all the food, and to not embarrass her, he starts eating it in the same way, using his hands and stuff like that. So there's some great scenes between Lightfoot and Leela, I think. Really, really nice scenes. So yeah, but yeah, Tom absolutely great, really, really good in this. Yeah, as always, just brilliant. Yeah, that voice and everything. Yeah, he's just superb, isn't he?
Okay, anything else you want to mention, mate, before we get on to
No, I don't think so. No, just looking at my list. No, I think we've pretty much covered it, mate.
Right, I think it's me to go first.
Okay, you filthy bounder. Sorry, I just saw one of my notes. Yeah, go on.
Filthy bounder, yeah. I'm going to go with an 8.
An 8. Okay. I'm going higher. I'm going with a 9 out of 10.
Okay, right.
I think the only things that let us down for me are possibly the giant rat, which they try really hard to make it work, but it does look a bit laughable. I think back then it still looked a bit laughable. So, yeah, for me, it's a solid, great production. Good story. Yeah, 9 out of 10.
Cool. I gave it an 8 because I thought that Greel was a bit too theatre a lot of the time when he was on screen.
Yeah, he is a bit,
very yelly and shouty. Where if he'd have reversed that and gone more sort of darker and sinister and quiet, that would have been just as effective. The rats, they really did try to get the sort of perspective right. The sewer tunnel when they went to the miniature version with the rat in and stuff, but some of the close-ups with the big rat teeth and stuff, and and just lastly, I felt that we potentially could have had a bit more of Jago and Lightfoot.
Yeah, I just always think they're in it more than they are.
I think I always think that they sort of clash. Not clash as in you don't get on, but they sort of clash together. In sort of episode 2 or 3, but they don't. It's not until near the end. So although that sort of one thing we didn't mention, that's completely made up. These days because Big Finish have really continued those characters on really well. And I'm really. If they were those early box sets, if they were a tad cheaper, I'd probably pick them up from Big Finish. So,
I am going to get them at some point. I'm just waiting for the right price as well. But
So, but I think they're on series. I think series 12's coming out soon.
Oh, they're ever so popular. They
really
obviously sell well, which is great.
Yeah.
One thing that does really help with this story, being a 6-parter, is that all the characters, especially Jago and Lightfoot, feel fully rounded straight away. It's really odd. I was thinking earlier, like the cast is really great, but all the characters feel solid from the get-go, which is quite unusual. There's nobody that, like I warmed to Jago and Lightfoot from the word go. The performances are brilliant. So, there's a lot of influence in this. I think Sherlock, Phantom of the Opera, Jack the Ripper, it's all in there, but it just all comes together for me. So I really like this one.
Cool. Good stuff. What did you guys think? Let's kick off an audio review. This is Alex Kingdom.
Hello, Garton from the Boodly Box podcast, and this is my review of The Talons of Weng Chiang. This episode is great. I love the whole feel and the Victorian London style of it, and how it kind of feels like Sherlock Holmes. I also like the temporary Fourth Doctor costume, although I heard that it was meant to be his costume full time from now on. I'm happy that they didn't go with that because it only suited the story. I like Leela in this one, she's good. But I think the stars of the show are obviously Jago and Lightfoot. I'm only kidding, or am I? I don't know. But I do love their characters, I think they're great. I do like the villain, I've forgotten his name, and his creepy doll. Oh, God. But I just really enjoy the story. I think it's great, and I think it doesn't lag for a 6-part story, so I'm going to have to give it a 9 out of 10. So goodbye, guys, and have fun with the rest of the show. See you guys next week.
Nice one, Alex.
Cheers, Alex.
Good stuff there. Over on Twitter, George Garrity says, if you can overlook the mild of its time racism, this is great. Great characters, great villain, great plot. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
You managed it in one tweet this week.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Well done.
Connor, his Twitter name is Jimmy_Goodchild, says, a great story. A little cringeworthy in some areas, cough, Mr. Sin, cough. But overall, a good story. And Pete Murphy, his Twitter name is Popscene69, says, great, but at times a little uncomfortable to watch.
Okay.
Rightio. Second audio review. This is Owen Daly.
Hi guys, hope you're both well and enjoying the show this week. Talons of Weng Chiang is easily one of the standout pieces of classic Doctor Who. I've seen this twice now, and I've watched it straight through twice, showing how good it is. The pacing is fantastic, the story is fantastic, and overall it's just a fantastic story. That's all I can describe it as. It introduces Jago and Lightfoot, two of the best characters I think the classic series has offered, and even though I've just listened to Mahogany Murderers, I really have to pick up Jago and Lightfoot Series 1 if it wasn't so goddamn expensive. So this concludes the Philip Hinchcliffe era. which is a pity because this is probably one of the strongest areas of Doctor Who in my opinion, but it finishes it with a bang, with a real gothic style episode with some great moments such as that giant rat, which is really cringy but really, really great. Leela gives one of her best performances, I think, and the sinister villain, Mr. Sin. I remember seeing him in Doctor Who Encyclopedia thing when I was about 10 when it came out, and he scared the crap out of me, and seeing him on screen was fantastic. There has been a Talons of Weng-Chiang sequel, I think, from the Virgin New Adventures, which I would really like to pick up. So to conclude, Talons of Weng-Chiang, one of the best classics, 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of the show.
8.5.
Excellent, good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I got to agree with him about the big finish, isn't it? I keep wanting to pick him up as well, and especially after rewatching this. But yeah, the dosh, man, the dosh.
Yeah, and I've sort of been hoping that now, because especially the early ones, you know, series 1 and 2 and 3, possibly 4, because they've been out for quite a while now. You would hope that they would be a bit cheaper than the new ones. Yeah. But yeah, it's just because it's not too bad. I mean, actually, as we're recording right now, the series 1 is down to £20.
Well, that's not too bad. Yeah,
from 35. So that's not too bad. But all the others are all 35 quid, and then the newest one, yeah, I think it's probably going to be 40 quid.
So, you've got to add postage onto that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, if they would have just a tad cheaper, you know, I think a lot of people would be picking them up.
I think so. I know Big Finish are putting their prices up as well, aren't they, at the minute? So,
yes. Yes. Anyway, over on Facebook, Sammy Satine says, so the Doctor decides to take Leela to the theatre in Victorian London and unfortunately stumbles upon a Chinese magician ventriloquist Lee Sing Chang, who seems to be murdering young women in order to strengthen his master, who is desperate for the time cabinet, which Professor Lightfoot thinks is a puzzle box. Marcus Greel is a criminal from the 51st century disguising himself as a Chinese god. He's also made at least one rat, a lot larger than it normally is. Can the Dr. Ligo and Jago and Lightfoot save the day? And is Mr. Sin a creepy Chinese puppet or something much more sinister? Excellent story, this one. I absolutely love it. I think Lee Sing Chang is played very well. Whoever played Mr. Sin did an excellent job. The actor who played Marcus Greel did an excellent job. Of course, did all the other cast members, including Louise Jameson as Leela, who is always ready to fight. The absolute marvellous Christopher Benjamin and Trevor Baxter is my favourite human pair of Victorian investigators, Jago and Lightfoot. And finally, the Doctor played by the marvellous Tom Baker. The only thing missing from this story is the Red Tavern, Jago and Lightfoot's favourite pub. If anyone is listening to the podcast, this podcast likes Jago and Lightfoot in the story, I thoroughly recommend the Big Finish spin-off series, which is up to its 12th series and is excellent. I give this story a very strong 9 out of 10.
Okay.
Greg Toby, short and sweet, one of the greatest stories from the Hinchcliffe era, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
A 10, stuff. Yep. Matthew Webb says, hi guys. Admittedly, I've never seen this classic before and only picked it up a couple of weeks ago in the first Revisitations box set, so I'm glad I got round to watching it. The brilliant blend of outside locations and sets really made the story feel that bit more authentic. Tom and Louise are also an absolute treat to watch. Tom, in his Sherlock-inspired get-up, was great, as a great alternative outfit, and his portrayal of the Doctor was on point, as usual. The supporting cast were also fantastic. Jago and Lightfoot, a brilliant pairing, and it was brilliant to see the beginnings, or the duo, after listening to the odd Big Finish release. Michael Spice does a brilliant job of bringing Marcus Greel to life, a truly horrifying gothic villain for this story. Only complaints is the use of yellow face and poor imitation of a Chinese accent from John Bennett. I understand this was probably the norm at the time, but upon watching this day and age, it was extremely uncomfortable to watch. Overall, I'd give this a solid 7 out of 10. Brilliant period piece. However, the outdated racial stereotypes do make it hard to fully enjoy. There we go. 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Let's do our last audio review. This is Jay Kent.
Hello, Gary and Adam. Hope you're all good. Now, the Talons of Weng-Chiang. It'd be here I'd do an impression of the villain, but I don't think I'd be able to get away with it without being considerably racist, which this episode doesn't exactly shy away from. But ignoring the offhand comments this story chucks about, a remarkable episode. I don't usually describe stories as scary, but I think this one sort of earns that title. From the blood trickling down Sin's arms, to the fleshy eyes and the porcelain face, even the ghost effect had me all jumpy and creeped out. The tie-ins with aliens and real real culture is always a plus point, and it's done brilliantly in this. Leela is as badass as ever, and her destruction of expectations for women was brilliant. She had some really good scenes from eating at Lightfoot's to jumping out the window, you know, as you do. And of course, a review of this wouldn't be complete without mentioning Jago and Lightfoot. You can see why they've got 11 Big Finish series. They're brilliant characters who, despite chances being against it, I would love to see return to the actual show. Wang Chiang is known to be one of the best in Who history, and you could certainly see why. I'm going to give this one a strong 8.5 out of 10. It's just that casual 1970s BBC racism that knocks it down a few pegs, but apart from that, I couldn't find much else to sin. Mr. Sin. I hope you're having a good podcast, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Cheers, Jay.
Nice one, Jay. Right, back on Facebook. Lewis Palmer says, Hinchcliffe's last story, and boy does he go out on a high note. It's dark, scary, funny, and downright entertaining. The Victorian setting is amazing and oozes with atmosphere, and I, of course, can't forget Jago and Lightfoot. There are problems. Today it can seem a little bit racially insensitive, and the rat does look bad. Overall, a solid 9 out of 10. He says, a quick side note, in LEGO Dimensions, there are Lee Sin Chang posters all over the walls in the Victorian London area of the Doctor Who pack.
Oh, that's awesome.
An awesome detail that I think of every time. Thank you very much. Jeff Waddle says, my all-time favourite. The right mix of horror, fun, thrills, and genuinely cracking story. Mr. Sin is just as terrifying now as he was when seen on transmission. Jago and Lightfoot, two of the best supporting characters. Creepy Victorian setting, Dr. Four and Leela at their best. Absolutely amazing.
Excellent. Cheers, Jeff. You only just got your comment in there, by the way. If we hadn't been late recording today, we might have missed you. I saw it pop up on the notifications. I was like, oh, good job we're recording late today.
Miles Mackenzie. I'm very on the fence with this one. It's an enjoyable watch, but not one I'd go back to often. And I don't put this up there with Genesis, Seeds, or Terror, etc. Jago and Lightfoot have very much grown on me with the Big Finish audios. Magnus Grill and Mr. Sin are some nice villains, and loved Four and Leela in this. I don't think the story appeals to me as much as I'd like, so it's a 5 out of 10 from me.
Oh, okay.
Lastly, Mark Atkinson says, I've never quite loved this story like everyone else seems to. Although it is a quality production with Tom at the height of his powers, and Jago and Lightfoot are great, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. Keep up the great work, guys. Thank you very much, Mark.
Cheers, Mark.
Did you have anything through on the Geeks Handbag page?
Yeah, I had a couple. Charlie Turner says it's the best Tom Baker story he's seen out of the ones he's watched. Peter Addison says, such a great story with the regulars on top form. Supporting cast are brilliant too. Good acting and direction. 9 out of 10 in brackets, but a bit racist. Stan Stacey Gallagher says, love the story. Tom as great as ever. And Dean Jones says, a classic that lives up to the hype. The script, direction, performances and production values for 70s TV budget oozes style, atmosphere and character. Tom Baker is excellent as ever as the Doctor. Louise Jameson delivers a great character in Leela, a unique contrast to Sarah Jane Smith. Jago and Lightfoot are absolute highlights. Want to get into the Big Finish stuff? Don't we all, Dean? The villains are terrific, even if the stereotypes are a bit odd. One minor nitpick. How does Chang not realise that he grabbed the wrong woman once Leela changes places? That's a good point. A Robert Holmes classic, 9 out of 10, Dean gives it. So, yeah, pretty strong scores. 1 or 2 in there that, you know, said it's not as good as they thought, a little bit overrated, but mostly high scores on this one.
Yes. It might be worth as well checking out the sequel story. I might pick that up at some point. The Shadow of Wang Chiang.
What's that?
It's a sequel.
What a book?
A book.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah. The Virgin Missing Adventures.
Oh, it's one of those, is it?
Yeah, The Shadow of Wang Chiang.
I've started picking up a few of them lately. I didn't even know they'd done that one.
Yeah, it features Mr. Sin, this time under the control of Lee Sin Chang's daughter, Hee Sin Ko.
Okay.
Yeah, so it might be worth a watch. A read.
A flick through. I was going to say there is a Big Finish audio called something Brisbane Butcher of Brisbane or something as well, which has is all about this. I listened to it years ago. I remember really liking it. So that might be I might give that another listen as well while I think about it.
And literally, this is like real-time radio. We've literally just had a comment land on the Facebook page. So Danny Brown, very fortunate that we're still recording. He says, one of the very few classic Who stories with 6 parts and doesn't drag too much. Story has got everything, suspense, stunts, and a great villain. Absolute classic in Classic Who, 8.5.
Excellent. Well, that was lucky, Danny. Thanks for coming in there.
The Butcher of what was it? The Butcher of Brisbane.
Yeah, I mean, the Doctor does actually say it in this episode.
He does, yeah.
And I remember liking the audio. It was a long time I listened to it. So, yeah, I'm going to have to dig that one out. It's a big finish, obviously, so I'll dig that one out. There was one other thing I wanted to ask you, actually. I just remembered about because a lot of this is filmed on real location.
Yes.
And most of the time that's done on film rather than videotape. I always find it a real shame that they didn't film the theatre scenes on film rather than video, because I often think it looks like they're on a set when it's actually a real location. You know, like all the scenes when they're in the theatre and the backstage and the hospital and the police station as well.
Yes,
they're all real locations, but they look like they're sets because they're not filmed on video, if you see what I mean. So when it changes, I always just think that's a real shame, because the episode would have looked a lot. Can you imagine, like the police station, for example, if that was on film rather than video, it wouldn't have that graininess. It'd look like the street scenes and like the Wapping scenes. It would blend so much more. Always just think that's a bit of a shame, but just talk about the overall look of it, but still a classic.
Yeah,
still a classic.
And there was a nice little link between classic and modern Doctor Who as well, because there's a scene where Chang is trying to explain to Greel that there's sort of an interfering character. He's obviously referring to the Doctor, who he says is a time agent. And Greel's like, no, he wouldn't be a time agent because of, I don't know, whatever reason, he said. And when we first meet Captain Jack, he says that he's a time agent from the 51st century.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Which is the same century that Greel is from.
He can't come back there because he's turned to a bag of dust.
Yes, yeah. He's out of there.
He's out of it. Mr. Singh could come. Oh no, Mr. Singh could come back.
He could come back. Well, we haven't read the sequel yet. I don't know if he bites the dust as well. But if not, then we could bring him back.
Yeah,
indeed.
I'd like him to come back.
Right, the Talons of Weng Chiang. That's all that done. Thank you very much for sending in your thoughts and reviews and stuff like that. Next week. What have we got on next week, Birdie?
Next week, Ninth Doctor. We've not got many Ninth Doctor stories left. In fact, they're all 2-parters. So we're going to be doing Aliens of London next week. And then we'll do a classic. And then we'll do World War III the following week.
So we're next,
so we're splitting into 2. But Aliens of London next week. So a bit of farting Slovene action.
Yes.
And that's got a pig in it. It's got a space pig.
Space pig.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're huge fans of Eccleston.
We certainly are.
So I'm really looking forward to rewatching this now. Ready for next week. So that's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Aliens of London.
Yes. And I think we will do there, buddy.
Okay.
Thank you for sending in your thoughts, opinions, reviews, musings, whatever you want to call it, on our review episode this week, or our review story, should I say, which was The Talons of Weng Chiang. It was an 8 from me and a 9 from Adam.
Absolutely.
So, some solid scores there. If you haven't seen this one, it's definitely worth a watch. One of Tom Baker's, I would say one of his best.
I would definitely put it up there, yeah.
Yes. Next week, Aliens of London, the Ninth Doctor. So it would be fantastic if you could send in your reviews and thoughts. Just look out for the Facebook post as usual. And if you wanted the list, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago about lurkers.
Lurker, yeah, I like that.
So we've got some fantastic listeners. Really appreciate you guys listening. But, just as a bit of fun, just step out into the unknown. If you listen to the show and you haven't jumped on the Facebook page or even recorded an audio clip, just give it a go. And you should, you could hear your voice played out across the airwaves.
Yes.
Or across the cables, whatever you want to call it. So look out for that. Really appreciate that. Head over to the website, www.bigblueboxpodcast.com. You can listen to all of the previous episodes and all of that stuff on there. And you can also link off to the social stuff and like us and follow and so on. And you can also subscribe on iTunes. And if you are an iTunes listener, if you could give us a rating and a review, that would be also fantastic. That really helps us out a lot. Also, check out Adam's stuff. He has his own channel, The Geek's Handbag.
That's it.
Over on YouTube and Facebook, just do a search for The Geek's Handbag. You can't miss him.
I shall be vlogging. You know, I'm off to this Phantom event this weekend.
Yes.
I shall be vlogging it.
Nice one.
So, and I've just remembered, obviously Tom Baker's at this event, so I'm looking forward to meeting him again. But Philip Hinchcliffe has been added to the list, and I've never met him.
Okay.
So I'm quite looking forward to that. Rather appropriate after this review as well. So
yeah, nice one.
Yeah. So I'll try and get it on film if they let me film.
If they let you. They should do.
Yeah, hopefully.
Cool.
Yeah. If not, I'll just be filming through a window saying, see that blurry dot in the background? That's Philip Hinchcliffe, that is.
Rightio. All good stuff. We will see you guys next week. Until then, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember...